This is Ian Faison. Welcome to Vetrepreneur. I am joined this week by Phil Dillard, who is a Navy veteran and entrepreneur. He's also a lean startup coach, and he's going to teach us today about some lean startup principles that you can use in your business and your startup. Phil, what's going on?
Hey, Ian. Great to be here, man. How you doing?
Yeah, it's a great day. Last day of Vetrepreneur Week. We've had some phenomenal speakers so far, and really excited to have you kind of lead the final session. We started with getting into entrepreneurship all through, developing the market, getting it funded, and we're at the point where we want to start to grow that business. You work with a ton of startups. Tell us a little bit about your background and what you do.
Sure, Ian. Thanks. As Ian said, I'm a Navy veteran. I started after the military doing some management consulting, doing business strategy consultings with different types of organizations. I moved into being an entrepreneur. First started up a clean tech company, and then worked with another clean tech company as an advisor and growing the revenue for that company. Been a CFO of a marketing automation company. So several different startup experiences under my belt. And I work now primarily as a coach and trainer for the Lean Startup Company. As a trainer, I actually teach people the new information, how to use Lean Startup in their business. And we'll work with companies from 2 people in a garage to Fortune 50 organization or large government agencies. And we're doing this training globally. As a coach, you go from actually teaching the information to sitting alongside people and working with them as they implement it and as they customize it to make their own business work. So that's like the difference between the teacher and the coach. And then personally, in my own business, I'm a practitioner of Lean Startup. I use Lean Startup and modern management practices to actually shape my business, to take the lessons that we've learned from recent entrepreneurial successes and apply them to Lean Startup. So I apply them to the business itself, to both the project and to growing the business.
And Phil, you also you're a professor and teach some of this stuff at a university. You do it live in real time. You do it with entrepreneurs. You do a little ad hoc training. You went to Patriot Boot Camp in and around the veteran community, spoke at Tech Inclusion, been in a lot of different places talking to a lot of different entrepreneurs. So is this something that you would say that by and large people are starting to get, but not necessarily there yet?
Great point, right? The Lean Startup movement, if you want to call it that, is about 5 or 6 years old, right? The Lean Startup book that Eric Ries wrote came out 5 years ago. Steve Blank started the work with customer development and his 4 steps to the epiphany a couple of years before that. So it's still kind of at the early stages of getting real mainstream traction, though both of those books are pretty much standard issue 101 reading for entrepreneurs in the Bay Area these days. The penetration into corporations is growing, but it's still at the early adopter stage. But it's a really important thing to note that this is a new modern management practice, a new modern management philosophy that applies to the environment that we're in the world today, which is why we're seeing startups, large enterprises, nonprofit organizations, government agencies, all sorts of folks applying the approach to make their business or their organization work better. So if you're sitting there, wherever you are in the world, whatever it is that you're doing, feel comfortable that you can apply these approaches and know that they're empirically proven over time to be a really effective way to apply a level of scientific method, scientific thinking, experimentation, and direct interaction with customers that's enabled by the technology today and also kind of expected by the consumer today to allow you to move your business faster forward than you ever really could before.
Yeah, and I posted in chat and I'll post in the show notes, link to the leanstartup.com. Absolutely go and read the book if you have not. If you're an entrepreneur or a business owner that has responded to the poll question as I've never heard of it, or maybe I've heard of it a little but haven't read it, absolutely go do that. It's required reading, definitely, for the folks that are vetrepreneurs out there. And there's a ton of the lean principles that really impact or help the veteran community be entrepreneurs? And we'll get into those later. But could you start off with just what are these lean principles, and how are they used in practice?
Sure. So lean startup basically is this modern management approach to help you deal with situations of uncertainty in a systematic way. There's 5 core principles. There's a couple key things to understand, and it's really it's really a very powerful way where we say to first stop wasting people's time. The whole reason of the evolution of the lean startup approach and its application is because there are a lot of times when you start up a company. Well, let's be honest, right? Most entrepreneurial endeavors fail. What is it? 80, 90%, right? A lot of them are going to fail for all sorts of reasons. So you want to give yourself the best opportunity for success. You want to actually give yourself the opportunity to learn quickly if your idea is good or bad or otherwise. And so the lean startup really gives us a means for doing this. We talk about we're operating in lean startup in an environment of where there's an environment of high uncertainty. And there are a few more environments of high uncertainty than when you're starting up a business in this perspective. I think one of the interesting things that we get as veterans is we've dealt with a lot of high pressure, highly uncertain environments before, and we've done innovative things, entrepreneurial types of thinking, and have been taught these ways of thinking by the nature of the business and by the nature of what it takes to be successful in those environments. So you really just need to translate that thinking around managing uncertainty and being entrepreneurial into this business environment. I like to start these sort of conversations talking about what is entrepreneurship and what is a startup. And really, we define the lean startup community defines entrepreneurship as a management discipline that deals with situations of high uncertainty, and a startup as being just a human organization designed to create a new product or service under conditions of uncertainty. So if you think about those definitions, it really doesn't matter where you are or how big you are or what stage of growth you're in for that to really be relevant. So the philosophy evolved in a product development context. That's how people often start teaching it. They talk about building a new product or service. And I'll talk a lot about it in terms of that context. But what I want you to understand from this management philosophy approach is that once you get started and you understand how it works in a product, then you start to learn how you can add it to finding new customers, building and growing your business, how you operate your business, because you have a very systematic approach that you use to go from one step to the next and work through this process. And that's what I'll go through. But first, let me just talk to you about the core principles, and then I'll pause to see if you have a quick question. There are 5 core principles. Entrepreneurs are everywhere. Entrepreneurship is management. This concept of validated learning, which is a new concept and very important and powerful for people to understand. This framework of the build, measure, learn loop, which is an iterative approach. We talk about learning loops, an iterative approach to finding the answers to the most important questions that you need to answer as an entrepreneur. And this concept of innovation of accounting, which gives you the ability to measure the learning from your entrepreneurial activity. Still with me so far, Ian?
Yeah, definitely. And I'll post all 5 of those in the chat as well for the audience. And I want to just do a quick little deep dive on entrepreneurs are everywhere, because this is something that, and maybe it's a good time to use a practical example from the military that we kind of talk about all the time. But the idea that entrepreneurs are everywhere, and especially in the military, where you don't think of yourself necessarily as entrepreneurial if you're, an E5 or a lieutenant or a staff sergeant or whatever, master chief, whatever you are, you might not think that you're being entrepreneurial, but you're going to face a problem that you have a ton of uncertainty and you have to learn how to do this thing. So talk about that really quick about how, they really are everywhere, and especially in the military where you don't necessarily, you might not think that.
Sure. So I'll start with the civilian context and then bring my favorite military example, and I'm sure we can talk about others as they evolve. In the standard business context, the concept of entrepreneurs are everywhere indicates that if you are out there and you see a problem, you have an idea, you have a vision of something that you want to do, and it's really uncertain of how you want to get there, but you think you can do it, then you have this enough of a mindset to really be an entrepreneur. It's not saying that you have to be this sage, creative, crazy person, this game shifting disruptor. There aren't these people who are born entrepreneurs, these amazing people. That's a bit of a myth. There are people who start and solve problems. I recently heard a guy who is the CEO of this company called Expensify that helps people to automate their expense reports instead of doing it on a spreadsheet or doing it on a back of a piece of paper or cobbling it together. They did it on your mobile, and they automate it. And they were one of the great success stories early on in the App Store. And this guy talked about how he had an idea of how he wanted to do something super cool and sexy, but he didn't know how to get there. So he was going to start with this really simple, mundane task of doing an expense report. And what he found was people didn't care about the super crazy, sexy thing, but they really loved the idea of making it super easy to do their expense reports, like taking a picture of a receipt with your iPhone and just uploading it, and then not having to worry about it, and then automating it through. And by solving a simple problem that they really stumbled into on their way to go somewhere else, they found a huge market that really needed their service. They also found a huge approach, a shift in the market that people didn't see, this whole trend of consumerization, right? They didn't have to go to the business itself to get approval to use this. The people, the consumers who were walking around said, I want this, and I pushed this into the business. So they found a new way of going to market into a business, all accidental, all accelerated by experimentation and learning along the way, which is fundamental to this lean startup approach. That's one really recent example that I've heard about live. My favorite military example that we've talked about before is the up-armored Humvee, right? You're in a serious environment where the current resources you have are not getting the job done because of an emergent challenge, because of some uncertainty that was unforeseen when the thing was designed. The people in the field needed to do something different, and the response back home wasn't fast enough. So what do good sailors and Marines do when something's not working and they need to figure it out? They do a sailor all, right? They do a Marine modification. And you have people who are, cutting different things and welding different things onto the vehicle to give them the protection that they needed. And then the innovation that they did in the field, well, that's new product innovation 101. You're responding exactly to what your needs are in the market. If you have a responsive organization that can go out and see that that's what you need, then you can actually more quickly adapt to the threat environment and have a better product, better resources for your team to accomplish this mission. And this is exactly what we're seeing in some of the DoD and government folks who are taking on lean startup approaches right now today. You see this in Hack for Defense. You see this in the U.S. Navy's Office of Innovation when they're doing hackathons. And you see this in some of the government agencies that you can go online and search and see who's out there and exactly what they're doing. Organizations like 18F and the NGA who've made it public about how they're going to learn from best practices and innovation in Silicon Valley to make the practice of the up-armored Humvee not just not the anomaly, but more the norm. So we are better and faster and more effectively achieving that mission. So the DoD and government is applying it, and you guys can do that too.
That's a fantastic example, and I love the idea of the ground, whether it's the soldiers on the ground or the employees on the ground that have the real pain point that bring those solutions to hire. And another one that, as Salesforce IQ, when I saw them pitch last year, that like blew my mind about just being able to have someone click you send them basically a digital version of your calendar that live updates or via email. hey, check out these 3 times, and they disappear based off people selecting them. And you look at things like Calendly and the different tools out there that we recommend to entrepreneurs, that these are coming from the ground up, where it's like, hey, 7 of my sales reps are using Calendly. Like, maybe we should buy this as a company because it's a good thing. And that innovation comes from, now it can come from the person on the ground who's like, man, I really need a solution to organize my calendar better, and then sell that to other people who need them to organize their calendar better, which ends up getting you a B2B customer. But that's the sort of stuff is so remarkable.
Yeah, that's exactly what Joe Kopser did with Rye Scout. I don't know if folks online know Joe, but he tells a story. He was trying to figure out, Army officer, trying to figure out a better way to get to the Beltway because he felt like he was spending too much time in traffic, and it bugged him, and he couldn't find an easy solution, and he searched for an easy solution, and then he's like, well, screw it, I'm just going to make one myself. And years later, I don't know, 4 or 5 years later, they just got acquired by Mercedes-Benz, and they're doing all this innovation around transportation and coordination because it's a critical challenge for us. It's the same thing that happened with the guy who founded Mint, Aaron Patzer. He was using software and QuickBooks in trying to do his taxes and balance a checkbook, and found that it was just too hard, and sat down at the kitchen table with a couple people trying to figure out how to make it easier. The thing that I think early entrepreneurs don't know, that I actually do know for a fact now, is that you have an advantage as a small entrepreneur, as where you are right now, looking at a problem or the vision of what you've got. And the advantage is that you're small and nimble and unencumbered. If you then do the things to prepare yourself mentally for the journey, for that marathon of entrepreneurship, and you surround yourself with the right people, like the community that you have around you of military veteran entrepreneurs who know the struggle and know your skills and know the opportunity that you can do, and then you align yourself with a really strong vision, you have an advantage over a large corporation that sees the same problem. Maybe someone inside the organization sees the same problem, but they can't necessarily do something about it, right? We talk about this in our training a lot, where we talk about the difference between startups and enterprises. Enterprises have these big businesses. They have businesses that are running for a profit. They fear the startup that's coming behind with innovation, but they can't necessarily worry about that sometimes because they have to grow their business. And the entrepreneurs have this ability to either disrupt that business at a core, or, like we were talking about, create a solution that fits right in line with where they're going and makes their lives easier, like this Expensify solution did. Like, heck, I used it as a CFO of a marketing automation company of 50 people, but I know people at 5,000, 10,000, 50,000 person organizations who couldn't build the product themselves. They just couldn't move fast enough. There were too many things in the way. But when they saw it, wow, that was the win from the entrepreneur. And that's where a lot of great opportunity lies for people today.
Yeah. And another, it reminds me of the Ustream thing as well. I mean, Brad Hunstable and their team, he wanted to find a better way to watch I think it was his little brother, his garage band was doing a show, and he was in Iraq in like 2006 or something. I could be butchering the story, but it's pretty close. And they wanted to watch he wanted to watch this band perform, and he had no way to do it. And so he's like, why isn't there something that does this? And so they ended up creating Ustream and built a company, which we recently got acquired by IBM. And that is the sort of thing that was built in combat for something that is a very real, tangible thing that you want, is that connection to other people, and you want to be able to stream things. And now the application of that service has been, it's B2B. There's a million other applications of that they've iterated on a ton of times, but that was built in combat through a vet that did not know they were an entrepreneur back then. That they were not sitting in Iraq like, hey, I'm going to start, in 7 years, I want to get acquired for $100 million. Like, that's not what was going on. But that person was an entrepreneur trying to solve a problem that they had.
It's a great reminder of entrepreneurs are everywhere, and they come in all shapes and sizes. You could be somewhat of a social entrepreneur like Combat Flip Flops. You could be a I'm going to disrupt the world sort of entrepreneur like an Elon Musk or Aaron Patzer or something like that. But you know what? Where you start where you are, and you get on the journey, and you enjoy the journey, and you learn. This is the building the business lean thing. The build, measure, learn loop helps us actually impact, execute that learning, and learn from the learning in a bit of a systematic way. Maybe I should transition to that because I think we covered a lot of, entrepreneurs are everywhere, and I alluded a lot to entrepreneurship is as management. But if I can work into the concept of validated learning and the build, measure, learn loop. Does that sound cool?
Yeah, absolutely. So walk us through that and give some practical examples of how folks are using that in their business. I love it.
Okay, sure. So first I'll go through validated learning. It's a real simple concept. I almost wish I could put a real quick poll up there to say, how many times have people asked someone their opinion on something, and then when they came back to the person to actually do that thing, they wouldn't do it? Product managers say, we've gone to customers and they've said, we like this product. Do you like this product? Should we make this for you? What should be in it, right? And people tell you all day long what they like in a product, but what they bought and what they want. But when you actually put it in front of them and they don't buy it, or actually put it in front of them, they buy it and they don't use it, there's a separation between people's thinking and people's behavior, right? I don't know the roots of the psychology behind it, but it really works in terms of projects. It really inhibits lots of products and services from becoming actual solutions. So what the concept of validated learning is that we always do a test of someone's behavior versus their opinion. The value that they give to a product, the value that they say, yes, I want this product. It's not a yes, I want this product. I say, I put the product in front of you and say, it's $5. How many do you want? And they say, oh, no, I don't want to buy it. Now I've incurred a behavior, and there's a shift in the psychology and the mentality once someone actually has a behavior. And then you could say, oh, wait a minute, you said you liked it. And you say, yeah, I liked it. And I gave it to you for $5, but you wouldn't buy it. They're like, no. And then you could say, well, why not? Right. And then when they say, why not? Why did I not purchase this product? Why did I not use this product? Then the information is significantly more valuable than just the opinion of what I might hypothetically do. Right. And that's this basic concept. And what we teach in the Lean Startup approach is a ton of different ways to do actual value tests that are different and faster than traditional approaches, because you can walk out the door immediately with your idea and test it with people on the street. You can go onto the internet and put up a landing page or send out an email and test it directly with people in a market, anonymously, branded or unbranded, and see if there's a response. In one of my projects, I did this recently. We wanted to understand perspectives of real estate agents on a certain type of product solution. We didn't have any brand. We didn't know any people. But in a few hours, we found somebody on the internet to get us some live emails, and we did it for really cheap. And we generated the email that we wanted to see, and we stated what we wanted to see out of the test, and we sent that out and experimented with live people, and they gave us real feedback. And it wasn't like feedback as in, do you like this? It was, hey, we have this product for you. Click here for more information, or sign up for our mailing list. And it gave us the answer to the most important question that we were trying to figure out. And then we could go back to them. The people who said yes, we said, great, here's more about the information about the product. The people who said no, we said, gee, well, really, why did you say no to that product? And then the information that we got from that experiment helped us understand more about their needs and then iterate more quickly to a product that seems to have a lot more value from them. And the great part of this, the power of this, is that you can do it right away, that it's super fast, and that it's low cost. And you don't need to depend on anybody else. And you don't need to be an expert, have some sort of tons of expert research. It gets you off of that that analysis paralysis potential that a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck into, and get you out and really interacting with people. So that's the concept of validated learning. Questions on that?
No, that's great. And as always, feel free to fire questions into the chat. No, I think we're drinking coffee right now. If you were to say, hey, do you want a little robot that pours your coffee and brings it to you while you're sitting down, so you can, drink coffee while you're on a webinar, right? It's like, right. Yeah, of course, I'd love that. I'll take two, right? Just in case it breaks. And they're like, oh, it's $1,000. Like, I'll just go and get the coffee myself. Right. Like that, and that's kind of what you're saying, is those behaviors where you're saying, hey, the opinion is, yeah, I kind of want that. Cool. It's like, yeah, it sounds pretty cool. Yeah, I'd be interested in that. I'd like to learn more about that. And like, oh, it costs $1,000. It's no way.
Yeah, exactly. Right. There's a couple points. You hit a couple points in there that I would really want to bring up. The first is about that decision, right? You ask people their opinion. Sure, sounds great. There's a million reasons why they might say, sure, it sounds great, right? And we could speculate on a bunch of them, but that's not what you really want to know. You want to know, at this point, are people really interested in this? Will they buy it? If I build it, will they buy it? When we call this customer uncertainty, right? Resolving that uncertainty. So the better question, the validated learning test is, hey, I've got a robot outside for that'll deliver you coffee. You want one? And then someone says, yes. And you're like, or how much is it? Right. And then I've got something, but I say, I've got one for $100. And they go, sure, that sounds great. Give me one. Right. Or sure, that sounds great. Put me up for a pre-order for one, or something of that nature. Now, the other interesting thing is here's why we have these modern management practices. What does a traditional entrepreneur do? They go, I have this vision of this amazing robot that's going to make and bring me coffee. It's going to be awesome. It's going to change the world. And I'm going to run off and I'm going to do this. And people are going to tell me I'm stupid, but I don't care. I'm going to stick to it. I've got the grit and determination, and I'm going to make it work. It's like you've got the precision of the rounds downrange, but you're way off target and you don't even know it, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do, right? This gives us, Eric describes the lean startup and the build, measure, learn, loop as like a bit of a GPS. If you're driving a car, you use your GPS, right? And he talks about this particularly in describing the pivot, but you don't go ask the GPS and say, hey, car, where do I want to go? You figure out your destination, you figure out where you want to go and why. So instead of just having the destination, having this robot that you're going to go out and build, you sit there and you say, okay, well, building the robot's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of money and a lot of resources. I want to make sure that I build the right robot the first time, because I don't want to build this awesome robot that I have in my head and no one use it. That's the worst case scenario. That's achieving failure. We don't want to do that. This is why a lean startup is important when you think about it in context of agile, and you think of context in terms of like the design thinking, customer development piece. You could talk to people and say all the things that they would want in a robot and get a great list of features. You could build it in a very agile way, where instead of making one big release, you make smaller and smaller releases and you build it faster. But what you really still need to do from that lean startup perspective is you need to get understanding along the way that you're on the right track. So instead of going out and building a robot, I might describe the robot on the piece of paper. Or I might cut that back even again and say, instead of describing the robot on the piece of paper, I might say, so you're sitting at your table and you don't have coffee. How do you solve that problem right now? What might be a more effective way to solve that problem? And you might say, well, I get tired of getting up and going back and forth to get it. And I might say, well, I just don't like grinding the beans. But when I figure out a lot of the feedback of why and how someone solves a problem, and then I bring them a solution that says, hey, does this solution solve your problem? And I find that problem solution fit. the easiest, fastest way to do that, that's what I want to do. So if I can do that with a flyer, if I can write a one-page flyer that says, I have an amazing robot that grinds your coffee and brings it to you and solves the key problems that you stated. Do you want one? And someone says, nah, you know what? It's fine. I can't, it's a problem, but it's not a big enough problem. Or, I like that, but you know what the really big problem is? It's this one over here. It's like disposing of my coffee grounds or something of that nature, right? A lot of times when you start down the road, you think you know what something is, and then you find another problem that's bigger and better. And that's why we do this build, measure, and learn loop. It's what the guy from Expensify shared with us when he said he thought he was going to solve something big, and he saw something completely different, and it was bigger than he ever expected.
Yeah, and you could test a bunch of the audience and say, hey, what if you were to have a robot in your house, which presumably you don't have? If you were to have a robot, what would you want? Would you want it to be small? Would you want it to be sleek? Would you want it to look like an Apple product? Would you want it to look like what would you? And you get down and down and down to this point where it's this, this tiny thing that's super fast that, runs and gets you your coffee and brings it back and doesn't spill. And, it costs, whatever, $50 or whatever the price point is that people kind of decided like, yeah, I'd probably want to do that. And then you could say, or you could say, what if I made the robot look exactly like R2-D2, and R2-D2 scurried off, brought you coffee and brought it back, and it costs $1,000? Well, there's a ton of Star Wars fans that would probably buy that for $1,000 because they don't have an R2-D2 robot and it just happens to bring them coffee. But the thing that they're buying for is not because it brings them coffee. That's kind of an added, it's like a feature.
Right.
Whereas the other people really just wanted to decrease the time of something giving coffee.
Yeah, and you might be exposing a different market, a different opportunity of things that are functional and look like something cool versus just solving a specific problem around the robot with coffee. Let me walk through the steps of the build, measure, learn loop and show people how we could actually iterate to this product, right? Because if you look at it, sometimes people think, okay, I do the build and then I measure and then I learn and then I'm done. But what we want you to understand is it's not a one-shot thing. It's not I'm going to build. There are some times where you can only build one thing and you have one shot at it, and it's extremely rare, right? This is not putting a rocket on the moon. This is entrepreneurship, right? So what I can do is I can break all this stuff down into teeny weeny little pieces. So I'm going to build the first, what we call minimum viable product, right? It's just it's an example of what the product is. And the first one could be that description on a piece of paper, right? That says, here's this amazing robot. Just click here for more information. Send me your link for more information. Or I could be asking people on the street. So I build something. I build a small version of the product. It's minimum because it's the smallest thing to test the learning that I want to understand. It's viable because it's a real product in the mind of the customer. If you put it, it's not a hypothetical as if you would like this. I'm telling you, I've got it. I may not have one with me right now. I may have one. It may take me a month or two to get it to you, but I've got one. It's an actual real product, right? It has all the, in the offer to the consumer, it gives you all the utility that you want. So I could start with that one. So I build that one. I say, what's the most thing I need to understand?
Hold on. No, I just want to stop there for a second for the audience to kind of understand that. So if you're building a robot that brings you coffee, what he's saying is that the first version of the robot is not you building or tinkering or doing anything. It might just be making a flyer or a web page or whatever it is and saying, hey, I'm selling these robots. Would you like one?
That's right.
So you've not built anything. And if you go and you talk to 1,000 people and 999 go, that is the dumbest idea I've ever heard in my life. And one person goes, that would solve every one of my problems. Then you're like, I don't know. I don't know what you do there, but
it's a great point to work on, right? Because part of the story is before I go out and talk to 1,000 people, I go out. So talking to 1,000 people is gonna take a lot of time. Maybe I'll talk to 500, or maybe I'll just talk to 100, or maybe I'll just start with 10. And I go to 10 people and I say, hey, does this sound interesting to you? And my assumption is I always tell people We always tell people, set an assumption, make a prediction about the future. So if you talk to 10 people, how many people do you think it's cool? For something like this, I'm thinking like 2 or 3, right? So if I get a 20 or 30% thumbs up on the idea where people say, oh, that's cool. Yeah, sign me up on your beta tester list or advanced product order list because I want to hear more about that. Then if I get 4 instead of 2, then I have some real good success, right? If I get 8 instead of 2, I go, wow, I thought 2 or 3 would say yes. And 8 have said yes. This is much more interest than I thought it did. Why was I wrong, right? The stopping and asking myself that question is the essence of the build, measure, learn, and root, right? I've built something. I'm going to measure the response to it based on where I thought it was be. 8 versus 2, that's a strong positive. Okay. Let me ask people why. Oh, I'm going to learn something new. What's usually going to happen is I'm going to learn something new from those other 6 people. 2 or 3 are going to agree with the fact that, yeah, it grinds my coffee and brings it to me. But maybe the other 6 have something I didn't even think of. And I've seen this happen over and over again, or something I didn't even think of because I'm not the consumer, right? I just have the idea. I need to find the consumer. They come back with something. Well, let's say I said this is awesome. Everybody's going to love it. It's a new toaster. People are going to want one in every household. And I said, 10 out of 10 people are going to want it. Well, I talked to 10 people and 1 person says yes. And I go, okay. I go to another 10 people and nobody says yes. And I go to another 10 people and another 1 person says yes. Well, before going to 1,000 people, I've gone to 30. I'm like, wait a minute. My premise here is off. I would figure that everybody wants it. Let me realign my thinking and figure out how I find that first group of early adopters. Another great book, quick read to add to this, is Crossing the Chasm. Right?
Yeah.
Because if you want to understand the early adopters, you need to find for early adoption people who are dying for one of these. What I want to find in the first 10, 20, 50 conversations is someone who loves your idea of R2D2 bringing me coffee. Somebody who wanted to build it. Their house is full of Star Wars stuff. They love the idea of gadgets and functional stuff. And they're like, give me one of those, because they're going to be the excited ambassadors who want to help you build your product. And they're going to trip over themselves to get it. They're the people who sleep outside for the next iPhone, right? You want those people you want to find those people, because those are the first ones you're going to get and you're going to learn with. And then you're going to refine the product so that it gets to a bigger and bigger market segment. You might find that you think that 1 out of 100 people is that person, and where it's actually 1 out of 1,000. And you know what? Given what it takes to build the robot, the cost and time and everything, and the price point they're willing to pay, 1 in 1,000 isn't enough. It needs to be 1 in 500 or 1 in 250, right? So then you adjust your thinking and your business model. But what you didn't do was run out and build the big full R2D2 because a bunch of people said it would be cool, and then find out later that you couldn't sell it to people because it was a much smaller market or a much harder market to access than what you're talking about. You bring up a really great point, because it helps me contextualize the build, measure, learn loop steps. And then we iterate on that, right? I might do the first MVP as 1 flyer. And then I learn, okay, people didn't like these words or these images. I'm going to reorient it and I'm going to add the features I learned from talking to the first 10 people. Then I do another MVP, talk to 10 more people. Well, now I've learned a couple more things, but when I start normalizing out and I can predict what people are going to say, then I know I've talked to enough people. And what we found is sometimes people think I need to talk to 1,000 people. I need to talk to 500 people. It can be 10, 20, 30 people that gives you the answer, that first answer for the most important question, because we want to test one idea at a time with this build, measure, learn loop. We want to identify our assumptions, list them out up front. What do we believe is true about this market for these cool, nifty robots, right? List those assumptions, prioritize those assumptions, and then go, okay, for the most important assumption that I need to know today before I do anything else on my list, let me prioritize that assumption and then do an experiment to give me some learning about that. And then when I learn that most important thing, and I take it from being uncertain to certain, because I know it with experiments that I've done myself, I can put that on the shelf and say, great, I know that. What's the next important assumption? Well, during the process of going through those 30 interviews and those 3 MVPs that we talked about with just the pen and paper, the features of the thing, and these 30 conversations, the assumptions priority list is going to change. Something that was 8 is going to move up to 2. Something that was 4 is going to move down to 11. So the priorities change. So then I take the next one off the top of the list. The great thing about this too is that it makes it easier for entrepreneurs to figure out what to do next. If you feel like there's a million things out there, and you're like, how do I manage all the stuff that's going on? There's all these different things I've got to do. I don't know where to begin. and you're feeling overwhelmed. This can like calm you down. Right? Because you go, let me go to my prioritized list of the specific things I need to know in order for this to be true. And once I've thought through that, well, I take one off the top, reprioritize after a cycle through the loop, take another one off the top, and reprioritize after the cycle through the loop. And then you are moving much faster, much more quickly in the right direction, fed by talking to the customer, getting out and talking to people, than going on my own intuition or my dream or vision of something that I know for sure is going to work. Because we can't know that.
Well, and so when you're talking to these 20 people, and do they need to be the people that are in your exact demographics? So like, for example, we know that people who go to Comic-Con by and large like Star Wars. So maybe you go to Comic-Con and you trust 20 of those people. And then you're also like, well, a lot of people who like Star Wars are, coders and hackers or something like that. So maybe you go and talk to 20 people at whatever, some like coding meetup or something like that. And you talk to those folks, and do you need to say, am I talking to the right 20 people? Do you need to say, is this the market that I'm working in? And then additionally, are you asking them for feedback kind of in real time and saying, hey, would you want this robot to bring you coffee, or would you want it to bring you a soda or something like that? Or do you want it to shoot the soda up in the air like a lightsaber, like in Star Wars? This is very Star Wars related, but you see what I'm saying? It's like, maybe they would all be like, yeah, I kind of want a robot, but instead of bringing me coffee, it would be cool if it, shot a soda in there like a lightsaber, like in Return of the Jedi or something like that.
Right. So the key question I'm hearing there is, how do you find the customer, right? How do you start with the customer segment? How do you start with your description of a customer and then figure out some of the segments, right?
And also we had a question that came in that said, how do you determine the question that you ask? So how do you determine the question that you ask? And then how do you determine the customers that you're talking to?
Okay, so there's a little bit of this is conceptual and a little bit of this that's tactical. Conceptually, right? A customer is anyone who gains value from your product or service, right? So you want to think about, first off, okay, I've got an assumption that everybody's going to love it, and that's one assumption, right? Everybody's going to love it. It's a new toaster, right? I have another assumption that the first people who are going to get a lot of value out of it are the people who think Star Wars, R2-D2 are cool, and people are like them, right? So this is something that's covered extremely well in work by Laura Klein on users know and build better products. I did actually a webinar with her yesterday on this topic. And it was also really well done in a book called
Check that out. I'll post it in chat.
Customer Development. Okay. Yeah, I'll send you a link. Lean Customer Development gives you some very specific step-by-step ways to get through this. But at a high level, know that you have this, who gets value and value from your product. Start with what you know, start with what you believe around the world and say, I believe that Comic-Con people are going to be super aficionados of this because of the cool and utility factor. I believe that people who are friends of Comic-Con people are going to come into their house and see this thing, and they're going to go, my nerdy Comic-Con friend is kind of a nerdy Comic-Con guy, but that thing's still cool. I want to get one, right? So you just state what you believe about the market, right? And trust in the process that if you're asking good questions about how to solve that person's problem, if you're passionate about that person and how to solve their problem, you're going to learn. Laura calls it having a lot of empathy, and it can be kind of I found it a little difficult to grasp that concept at first because I was like, yeah, I'm a pretty empathetic guy, but I don't get it, get how this business is really being empathetic. But if you think about it, if you actually don't put yourself in the shoes of the customer, just try to understand their pain, and you go to them or their excitement, and you say, what problem is this solve for you? Well, how does this make you feel? How does this make you feel when you use it? What do you really like about it? And people tell you how they're interacting with this thing or interacting with this problem. Then you can learn a lot more about where you were right and where you were wrong and what sort of doors open up. You can influence your knowledge a little bit with research, right? Because you can say, okay, well, let me just understand like who buys coffee devices and where they're bought and sold. But you can figure out how many coffee devices were bought and sold and that sort of thing. But the interesting thing about this approach that I just want to inform a little bit with research, but I still want to do my own experimentation, because you as an entrepreneur are unique. You're a person, you have these great ideas and you have these great insights, right? And what makes successful entrepreneurs is great people and great vision and great dreams. But it's not static, right? You're going to go out and this thing is going to grow and evolve. What you bring to it is it's special. So you breathe some life into it. You may start out thinking you're going to make a coffee device, and you might make a line of Star Wars functional type toys, right? That becomes super profitable because you're listening to this customer segment. You're following your own vision of what you want to accomplish, right? And you're going towards that vision, and you're just listening. You're just listening and finding a really good route to get there. It's really important to be yourself through this process, to pursue your passions through this process, but be informed by the fact that you need to solve a problem for a customer. And if you start with what you know and you learn more, believe me, you'll continue to learn more and more and more. But what you want to do is not learn so much that you're trying to boil the ocean, right? Can't put the ocean on a pot and turn on the heat and boil it. It's just not going to happen. You need to get something small enough to fit into your pot so you can get that kinetic energy high so it actually will boil. So you need to narrow your focus and avoid some of the distractions. And this is an art, not so much of a science, right? But the tactical steps help you keep focused and help you stay on track and say, well, I'm getting off track here, and let the data drive you, let the data inform you and shape your learning and intuitions from that.
So, and I think to determine the question that you ask is really just based, like you said, off of your hypothesis. I mean, if your hypothesis is that, my hypothesis is that there's, $1,000 coffee maker out there that people will buy. And those people, the best people for that are Star Wars fans, because they're the biggest aficionados of stuff like that, right? Mm-hmm. So you go and you say, hey, I'm going to test this hypothesis, and that's the question that you ask. If you have a different type of business, are you asking that question based off of like pain points? Are you asking that based off of Europe?
So great point. I structure this as like, what's your vision? What are some ideas you have of how to achieve that vision? And then what are the assumptions underneath of it, right? And I have to get those ideas and the assumptions by thinking about a customer, like what customer's problem am I going to solve? So sometimes if I want to get a little more tactical to people and say, look, if you're trying to figure out how to get started in just writing assumptions, just sit back and say, what are some things that I believe about the market for coffee? I believe that there are high-end devices out there that people pay $1,000 for. I believe that people like memorabilia branded items. You just start listing them out. I would say to someone who's just starting out and they want to go through that exercise, just list out every assumption that you believe about this product or service and the market. Talk about the product, talk about the pain, talk about the market. For some people, it just comes relatively naturally to start with those set of I believe statements. Don't feel bad if you start and you only get 3 or 5. And then the next time it grows to 15 or 20, right? If you've got 500, you might have too much. If you've got 5, it's a start. But just list that set of assumptions until you run out of them. In training, we'll have teams put them on Post-it notes, and then they'll sequence them. But you can do it I do it on a piece of paper or on a Google Doc or whichever, and just list out the assumptions. And I go, okay, well, I've got a good starter list. Number 3 seems like the most important. Let me start with that. The great part of this iterative process is you don't have to be perfect from the beginning. Just get started. You don't have to talk to 1,000 people. You know what? Just talk to one. And when you get one person who gives feedback on it, then talk to another one, and then talk to another one. And after talking with people and after interacting and showing them the product or service that you're talking about, then you're going to learn more, and you're going to have more assumptions, and you're just going to continue to uncover them. And you're going to say, wow, well, the thing I didn't know was I used to believe certain things because everybody knows that X is true, or everybody would want one of these. How is that not possible that they wouldn't want one? But when you talk to people and you realize that we all don't think the same, right? And that we have to find people for whom this is a problem, it's how you get started.
That's awesome. And it looks like we have about 5 minutes left. So feel free to keep firing in questions. We had a question on what is the best tools for this process? Is it Launchpad, et cetera? What do you think some tools? And obviously, we talked about some books, and I'll post those in the chat. 4 Steps to the Epiphany, obviously Lean Startup, the Lean series, Crossing the Chasm, all stuff that I'll post. But what are some tools out there that you would recommend for this process?
The tools question can be a bit of a tricky one because there is no super uber wonderful tool that makes the entire process easy. There are some tools out there. Ash Moira has a tool. There's the business model canvas that Alexander Osterwalder's put together. There's Steve Blank has some different tools. There are some different tools that are out there, but and the Lean Startup Company is officially tool agnostic. Eric won't do tools or systems. He just doesn't do it. In my experience, what I think you want to do is find an approach that works for you to get this done. We use a lot of Post-it notes and Google Docs and customize the Google Docs as they go. And I use them with my teams. The Post-its are really easy. It actually works with people who use design thinking methodology and Agile as well. But just writing things on Post-its and prioritizing your assumptions is really helpful. And then taking a simple sheet about an experiment, right? Strategizer.com has a number of simple sheets you can look at and see what some of those templates look like. But really look at the different templates and then start with something simple that's going to work with yourself is probably the best thing. Every organization that I've seen that's really done this with any level of intensity has customized these things themselves. There are a number of different. Dan Olson's Lean Product Playbook has a bunch of different tools and templates in them. But what you really got to do is like, okay, this is cool, but let's say what works for me. Because if you come from an engineering background or a design background or a strategy background, you're going to look at the same problem from a different perspective, and you need something that's going to ease you into the process. And the tools can be really helpful, but if you jump into them too fast, you're kind of restrictive. I don't use a business model canvas often. I'll use it maybe to convey a business plan to people when it's time to convey a business plan on one page. I'm like, here you go. Here's how the business works, right? Because for me, thinking through it of here's what I know about the world and what I believe, and just starting that build, measure, learn loop as an iterative process, it's really simple. But I was like trained as a physicist in college, right? I did classes with the guys who would they wouldn't memorize equations. They would go F equals MA and derive the rest, and they would think through stuff to get to answers. But so different people are going to approach it different ways, and all of the practitioners you're going to see have a different approach and some different sets of tools out there. But you've got to get your mind thinking about how you're going to solve your problem and create your business and bring your unique way to approach this practice. It's a practice like anything else. When they say like a law practice or an advisory practice or a coaching practice, the better you do, the better you get at it, the better you are at your craft, the more you know, and the more you refine your own tools, the better you're going to be able to implement your personal style and management philosophy using this as a framework.
Yeah, that's absolutely awesome. And I really appreciate you taking some time out. If there's any other questions, fire away. I just want to thank you again for coming. I'll post your Twitter, which is Phil Dillard 0210 on in the chat and in the show notes. And where else can people find you?
I post a lot on LinkedIn, and feel free to send me an email if you have further questions or want to talk a little bit more. I'm actually, my LinkedIn account has the email on there that you can use to reach me. I'm on there all the time.
Okay, cool. Yeah, find Phil on Twitter and LinkedIn. Thanks again, everyone. Thank you for showing up to all these sessions of Vet Week. It's been fantastic. We're going to do a bunch more stuff coming up. We do Vetrepreneur growth sessions every single Wednesday at 11 a.m. Phil, we got to get you on a growth session and work start off on one of those. And if you have any questions, you can find me on Twitter at Ian Faison and reach out to us anytime. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks so much, guys. Go get it.